Hello and thank you for viewing this video in which I will be unboxing and giving my first impressions of my Asset Drop Discovery Box and Heroines Box for March 2018. My name is Steve, this is the SDFnet 40k channel, and let us begin. So, to address first things first, I'd just like to apologise for the lighting and the ambient sounds. I'm having to, it's a gloomy old day here in Britain, and I'm having to film in, as such, because of the lighting, I'm having to film it in a unusual filming location, and as such we got a lot of bird song and clocks ticking and everything else. So I apologise for that, but with that said, let's crack on. Now, March seems to have been quite an asset drop heavy month, what with my late review of February's box and my interview with Andy, the founder of the company. But here we are again, and we have yet more coverage. This time, thankfully, a tad more timely than February's unboxing. I'm looking forward to getting into this month's boxes. As ever, I'm like a kid at Christmas when it comes to surprises, so let's just get in, shall we? Before I get into the box contents, for those who are new to my content or to the Asset Drop service, I will give a brief introduction as to who Asset Drop are and explain a little about what they do. Asset Drop are a UK-based company that ships monthly mystery boxes aimed at miniature painters and collectors to countries across the world. Their first box was launched in October 2017 with the Core Supplies, or renamed Discovery Box, which is the one I'm subscribed to. Since then, they have expanded their range to include a Heroines box, featured here. Most recently, they've also launched a Monsters box, and I'm sure as time goes on, more products will be hitting the ranges. Each month, the box offers something unique and worthwhile, and at a price point that you can guarantee you'll be paying less for the box than the combined recommended retail price of the contents separately. The Discovery Box is aimed at painters. For a subscription of £19.90 a month plus postage and packing, the box will provide 6 to 8 curated paints or related products such as weathering powders or basing paints from alternate, new or less well-known brands or ranges for us here in the UK. The intent of the box is to introduce hobbyists to new products outside the core brands commonly available, such as Games Workshop, Vallejo, Army Painter and so on. Not that there's anything wrong with these brands, but for many, myself included, these products were picked just because they're easily available and and continue to be what we know. The intent of the Discovery Box is to broaden your horizons as a painter, to help you discover a new brand or perhaps just a new single paint, or a paint that behaves differently to what you're used to give an interesting effect or a different way to achieve a result. To help support this, each Discovery Box comes with a bespoke product guide that gives you information on the products in each box and provides easy to follow step-by-step instructions on how to use them, frequently illustrating multiple application techniques. For me, it was this product guide that sold me on the service. Whilst I would consider myself a curious painter, as in I wonder about things, not I produce bizarre painting, but that's probably also true. Anyway, I digress. I'm willing to try new products and new techniques. I'm also not an expert, nor someone with an overabundance of money. When I returned to the hobby a few years ago, I took the plunge and bought into Vallejo big time. Years on, I've discovered that some of their paints are good, others are complete trash. But there's always the nagging fear of having been burned once with a Vallejo paints, or Vallejo paints, shall I say. How much money do I throw down on new ranges? When it comes to new effects, I know I've bought products that, in honesty, I have no idea how to use. So they've just kind of sat on the shelf and really done nothing since buying them. But I don't really have the time nor money to waste running through models to learn by trial and error. Asset Drop have taken a lot of the concern out of the equation by selecting the paints that Andy, the company owner and producer of the product guide, would endorse. He illustrates how to use them, and whilst he drastically outstrips me in terms of skill, he does illustrate what you can achieve with the products he recommends. If you're interested, in the interview I did with Andy, he discussed the process for selecting paints and how he puts together the boxes. That interview is available on my blog, a link will be in the description. The Heroes box, which is the second box you see in front of you, was the next to join the range. The box is named more at collectors than miniature wargamers perhaps, as the models will not always fit into your setting of choice, either sci-fi or fantasy. But the models included are always chosen to be standout examples of female models. That's Gemma, who is the asset drop customer service guru and creator of the box's theme, so accurately puts it, kick-ass. For me, money has been the limiter to prevent me jumping on board with this box previously. In terms of use I would personally get, I deemed the Discovery box to be a better bet. With that said, I have watched a number of unboxings of previous month's boxes, and so far the models that Gemma has selected have been fantastic. I say previously, I've not jumped on, as this month I've had a bit of a splurge, and as you can see, I have bought myself a Heroines box, as I've really regretted missing out on the previous ones. So stay tuned to later in this unboxing as I get into that. The models are not chosen specifically for a game system, but rather as standout showpieces, though so far they've all been within the 28mm range, so you could mix the models into whatever RPG or wargaming games you happen to play, if their aesthetic suits it. They really have lived up to the goal. Each model being selected has, watching other people's reviews, has left me in awe of how much fun it would be to paint their model. The final product from their range is the new Monsters box, and this one I can't talk too much about as the first box has not yet shipped. What I can tell you is the first box is due to ship in April and has already sold out, so sorry for anyone wanting to jump in on that service. The Monsters box certainly is the most expensive in the range, with a subscription price of £31.90 plus postage and packing, but the value of the box is estimated at £45 RRP. The first box will feature a bespoke limited edition model only available in this box, so it's a great boon to the launch of this product, together with the scenic base and 4 acrylic paints you'll get to help start with painting the model. I really wish I got in on this, but again, I wasn't quick enough and I ran out of money. But again, if you're interested in this box, Andy went into it in the interview, so while you may have missed out on the limited edition model, the information in that interview may be interesting to you for an ongoing subscription. One other thing that I wanted to mention that stood out to me from day one of my subscription to Asset Drop is that 5% of the profit of every box sold is donated to the Blue Marine Foundation, who are a charity dedicated to the conservation of the oceans, a topic I personally feel quite strongly about. This stood out to me as from the very first box, Asset Drop had been donating 5% of their profits to charity. I don't know of many other startup businesses who do that, especially given the cost and difficulties involving starting a business, especially one like this that has so many upfront costs in buying stock and shipping things. To me, this really spoke to the type of people behind the scenes and to affirm my confidence in them. So that's who Asset Drop are and what they do. I've been a subscriber to the Discovery box now for 5 months and I'm extremely satisfied. Obviously, due to the nature of the mystery box, not everything you get will be guaranteed to be applicable to your interests. For example, in one box I got some snow basing and weathering materials. None of the model collections I own would really make use of that, but having read the guide provided, I can certainly attest to the quality of the effects you get from the brand Andy selected. Based, I believe, on the success of Asset Drop, there does seem to have been a slew of copycat mystery boxes appearing on the market. I've watched unboxings of them with interest, but for my money, not one of them has offered the quality nor value you get from Asset Drop. Finally, to bolster my confidence in the company, I've had frequent communications with Gemma in customer service, both regarding questions and requests I had as a paying customer, and also regarding the interview and related things to my coverage of their products, I can say without hesitation or equivocation that the service I've received from Gemma and the company as a whole has been in a different league to any other company I've ever experienced. As such, despite affiliate links being available and things, I can offer my recommendation to the company without any hint of bias or personal gain. So if you'd like to check out the service for yourself, simply to head over to www.assetdrop.co, or if you have a question about the service, I'm happy to give my honest answer. So feel free to ask me in the comments or via social media. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And now, I guess, what you've been waiting for. On with the show. As I've mentioned, this month it's a special treat, as I have my usual Discovery box, but also have the Heroines box to get stuck into. But first up, let's look at the Discovery box, as that's my regular subscription. I'll just move that out of the way for the moment. As always, I'll start by discussing the packaging. This month I can clearly illustrate the difference between the boxes. I'll move that back into frame. Both the Herons and Discovery box come in this sturdy cardboard box adorned with the Asset Drop logo and then either the Discovery or Herons label in the top right hand corner. As we open the Discovery box here, sorry if that's really noisy on the microphone, we are greeted with the product guide, which I will refer back to later. The next layer of packaging is this black tissue paper, which, whilst it does not provide any cushioning, it is in a sealed band around the rest of the contents, as you can see, which holds everything in place and prevents the products from moving in transit. The tissue paper is a small touch, but it's a great idea, and also goes some way to heightening the anticipation of opening the box, as there's another layer to open once you open the lid. So just get that open here. Then we have a layer of bubble wrap to yet further protect the product. And then we have all the products nestled in this straw-like substance, which I'm informed is called wood wool. This provides the ultimate protection for the products, both holding them in place and absorbing knocks in transit. While I haven't had need, as most product packaging is plastic, I would actually be confident to send glass containers in shipping this well cushioned without fear of it breaking. The wood wool also gives the impression of quality, like you're getting a posh hamper or something. It's a small touch, and in reality we're only talking about bottles of paint here, but the perceived care and attention to put into the box it shows and makes you feel like your subscription is really excellent value. So the first item out of the box this month is going to be these gigantic bottles. These are from the brand Com Art, which is Medea. We have a triad of opaque colours. We have white, bright rose and violet. These are obviously dropper bottle designs, which is my preference, and they have a 1 ounce capacity, which is, I believe, like 28 or something millilitres, something like that. So, you know, a good amount of paint, and the bottles do contain agitators, which is always welcome. Checking the side of the bottle to confirm. I'll just have to do this off camera. I apologise for that. To confirm my suspicions that Medea are the paint brand for Iwata, who are of course one of the premier airbrush manufacturers. The instructions in the product guide indicate that these can be airbrushed or manually brushed, so that's good. Using a fine brush, they will go on thinly, so they'll require lots of coats, but that's fine. It means you have good control of the paint if the application process is slightly more long-winded. Andy describes these paints as working very different to other acrylics and advises you use them more like a wash over the white. The extra opacity of the paints will leave the underlying colour showing through. So that's interesting. The example for the use of these paints in the product guide is to create crystals that could be used on the basis of miniatures or form scatter terrain. Andy has suggested you take bits of sprue and cut them to form crystal shafts, possibly creating a number of them to form a cluster of crystal formations. He then goes over the steps of applying the included colours to create kind of an amethyst purple look. However, it does note that the the same process could be used to create alternate effects. I mean, I'm immediately thinking if these using this in green colours for Necrons. For the use of the purple that we have here, I can see a number of uses. I'm thinking perhaps instead of crystal precious gems like amethyst, to instead they may be some form of crystallized chemical runoff for something in Necromunda. I could possibly see like creating some kind of terrain, a cave where these chemicals had accumulated and form these crystals, and then the gang go in there and harvest the formations, albeit extremely toxic to the self or creds or whatever. Or I suppose if you're a fancy player, I could see the purple crystals fitting into a setting nicely. I don't know how it would affect scale, but perhaps the whole board's worth of large crystal formations. I don't know if the effect would scale to a larger form than that, or if it would kind of enter uncanny valley or kind of territory. But you could create an entire world of these crystal formations and then just create a really interesting and unique looking board. So that's interesting. So those are to one side. That's gone horribly wrong. Never mind. Next out the box, we have one of the colour shift paints from Green Stuff World. Now these paints are awesome. I know Green Stuff to be an excellent store anyway, and as I bought products from them in the past. But when they launched this range of paints, I was absolutely obsessed with them. This is my first actual hands-on with the paint. As much as I love the idea and the effects, I really couldn't pinpoint anywhere that I would use them enough to buy entire sets of them. Yeah, much to my dismay, I hasten to add. But and as such, so far I've refrained from taking the plunge. I can guarantee you, if they did a black to green fade, that I would snap that up immediately for Necrons. Anyway, I know this red-green colour, I've seen other people illustrate it on YouTube things, is a really, really good one, because the red and the green are contrasting colours. The transition is really, really good. The bottle is a standard 17ml bottle and does contain an agitator, so that's another win for me. So I'm really, really excited to have a play with this. I'm sure with a little creativity, I could come up with a legitimate use for it. Can't think of one right now, but I am certain that will get used. Now, before I talk about the product guide, what it says about these paints, I noticed in the product guide that it did mention to be used in conjunction with this. Now, generally, metallic paints go best over a black base, and I'm assuming this being a gloss black colour, the gloss aspects will help the colour shift effects. And to me, this has got to be the weirdest packaging for a paint that I've actually ever seen. Revell are, of course, a brand well known in the model industry. Most wargamers probably know them best for their plastic glue. I suppose to give them credit for this square design, it could make your paints quite easy to store, as there'll be no they could stack and everything else. The pot contains 18ml of water-based acrylic and does not have an agitator. I'm really intrigued by this pot design. Can I open it now? Let's try this. If this doesn't work, then I claim no responsibility. No, that's not opening now. But yeah, I'd be curious to know if it's just a standard round pot inside or what. But end of the day, I think that is just boring, uninteresting black paint included to be paired with this, as opposed to this being a particularly unique product in itself. Accepting that the black paint is not really that interesting, other than to provide the base, we can refer back to the product guide that gives the tips on how to use it. So skim reading it, it talks about layering the paints, give a greater shift to the red tone, which they've illustrated here, with one coat being still quite green based, and the second coat really bringing out the reds. But looking at this, I'm really drawn to actually the one coat picture, as I'm immediately thinking of painting the giant stag beetle from that Age of Sigmar Wood Elves model. I don't know her name, Andariel or something. She's referred to by us as Bug Lady. Anyway, my brother owns the model and he bought it just because the model looks so good, but has since kind of bottled it when it comes to painting it because she's just too awesome to mess up. Now, I understand his sentiment there, but I have a play. If I can paint this and produce a kind of iridescent colour that you see on many beetles, I think that will take us one step closer to that model being painted. So I'm really, really pleased about this colour shift paint. So far this has been a really good box, I think. Next out of the box we have one of the wonderful Asset Drop empty dropper bottles. These are great and always a welcome addition, even if just to bump up the value of the box. The bottle contains 20 millilitres of paint, or can hold 20 millilitres, so you can quite easily transfer 2 Games Workshop pots into one bottle. They have child-safe lids and a precision nozzle, for want of a better description, so you'll never get accidental big blobs of paint where it just can splurt out onto your palette. Interestingly though, looking at this, in the previous example we've had of these in previous boxes, it had a single metal agitator ball bearing, but these have 2, what I assume are either glass or plastic agitators. It doesn't really matter, it does the same job, and 2 glass or plastic ones versus 1 metal one, it shakes the paint up. It does its job in a seamless cut because of a helicopter. As you can see, I've arranged the paint nicely for you all. The final 2 paints we have in this month are a pair of Reaper Master Series colours in Surf Aqua and Bright Turquoise. These are half-ounce dropper bottles, meaning I guess 14 millilitres, if my earlier presumption of the Com Art paints being 28 millilitres at 1 ounce was correct. These bottles do not contain agitators, which is a shame. We were doing so well. Reaper are a big brand across the pond, but not so widely available here in the UK as yet. These are some interesting colours. Referring to the product guide, Andy does give an example of using these colours together with the white for a peak highlight from the Com Art paints as an alternative to the common Games Workshop, can't even pronounce their company now, Games Workshop Lilac Oxide Wash approach for painting ghosts. As you can see, Andy does a great job of illustrating the stage by stage results of techniques, but for me, I'm actually thinking more water than ethereal results for these. If not for my birthday next month, but sometime in the future, I fully intend to get into the games Kings of War from Mantic, where I intend to play the faction Trident Realms of Nautica, whatever they're called. I've no idea if they're good or bad, but they just have regiments of killer frogs and battle crabs and Cthulhu octopus head people, so really what's not to love about that? They also have water elementals, so I could see using these, bring those models to life using these paints, so they would stand out from other blues that I might be using from other ranges elsewhere in the army. So it'd be interesting to have a play and find out if they live up to their name of Master Series. So now we've covered all the paints in this discovery box, and of course the all-important painting provisions. I'd like to take a moment and talk about the value of the box, which I neglected to do on my late review of February's box, which was remiss of me, and I apologise. The box this month contained 7 paints, the spare dropper bottle, which have a combined RRP, according to the product guide, of £26.35. So you've definitely made a nice saving against the full price. But in fairness, who buys their paint at full RRP? If only speaking for myself, shopping online discounts usually hover around 10% for paints. You might even be able to get up to 20% off the cost. But even with those discounts, the subscription cost for the asset drop will still be a big saving versus buying them individually. The point of the Discovery Box is really to introduce you to new or different paint ranges or products. So I went to 3 of the biggest online retailers in the UK in the break helicopter that I just mentioned. Element Games, Wayland Games and War Games, to see if I could source these products and save money. The short answer is that no, not a single one of the companies even stocks all of the products, meaning it's impossible for me to say if you'd be able to source these products for cheaper than or easier than from Asset Drop. So well done, guys. For me, I think it's a really great box, and I can see me getting a lot of use from a lot of the products. So good job. In another seamless transition, I beg you not to disappear yet. If you got this far in the unboxing, I invite you to join me as I break into my first ever Heroines box. This box has a great deal to live up to against its predecessor months. I've been impressed every time I've seen one of these boxes in the past. The models have been really, really top tier. I won't go through the unpackaging description again, as it was the same experience as the Discovery box. So that's kind of also self-serving for me, because it means I get to jump straight in and see what goodies we get this month. Opening it up, we have the first layer of tissue paper, and under that we reveal the first custom printed product guide. This is not a multi-page experience like the Discovery box, but the items in the box are fewer, so you don't really need as many pages. I'll refer back to this product guide later. Next in the box we have some more all-important rations, and this cool little character card thing, but again I'll come back to those. So, Room Literature. I'm extremely excited to see this model is from Grimskull Miniatures, who make alternates, usually female sculpts for Warhammer 40,000. Their range is absolutely fantastic. I already own a number of their models, including 2, I think, of their Commissar models, a female Inquisitor on bike, and a few female Mechanicus Adept people. All of their models really kind of capture the grim dark aspects of the 40k universe and produce outstanding quality sculpts. If only eye-catching window shopping, I strongly suggest you leave your credit card far away from your computer, but I recommend you head over to www.grimskull.com, as you see it spelt there, to check out the range for yourself. This model is an alternate for the Vindicare Assassin. I'll bring that back up so you can see it. Apologise if it's not very clear. So that's good, as a model is good rules wise, so it could actually see some good tabletop usage as well. The model is cast in this very light resin, and I don't think my camera does it justice, but it's really crowned with details. Let's just open it up. So we have a scenic base here. It's got the motif on the bottom, but that's really nice. And can we look at this without opening it? Because I don't want to lose any of these little bits. But as you can see, there is just so much lovely detail on this model. I'm really looking forward to getting to painting this. And it obviously does include a scenic base as well, but what I'm seeing immediately is that there are no like ugly gates for the resin on here. Obviously it's off sprue in the first place, but there are no massive mould lines or anything, or no gates. I mean, you only need to look at Failcast to see how not to do resin. And there's also no warpage. I mean, this would be a prime candidate for warping, it being just a long, straight, thin piece of resin, but that seems perfect to me. So that's really, really good. So, sorry that cut off there. As I was just saying, I really think I'm actually going to have to email Gemma directly and thank her for selecting this model. Now, I've obviously got lucky with this Heron's box, getting a sci-fi miniature, being my principal game of choice, being 40k, but were it to this quality, I wouldn't mind even if it had been like a fantasy miniature, as it's just going to be such a joy to paint. So now I've done my best impression of a 5-year-old at Christmas, disregarding the instructions, in order to get to the new toy, we can now take a moment to look back at the character card and product guide. The product guide itself gives some lore here, 40k lore here, explaining who the assassins are and their position with the Imperium. Being a massive 40k nerd, of course I love this stuff. On the second page here, it also gives some fluff as to the war gear of the assassin, including the Extus rifle and pistol, stealth suit and spy mask. Obviously not including the 40k rules, because copyright. And this little business card thing, which I can't pick up now, it's a nice little touch. If you were collecting these models for the Great Paints series that Asset Drop are pulling together, as opposed to collecting the model or getting a model for the purpose of a war game, this little playing card would be a nice little collector's item. It's got that this is the fourth drop. Gives some details on the model. So nice little touch there. Next out the box we have Trench Earth Weathering Powder by Cromlech. Also on a tangent, speaking about alternate 40k models, Cromlech have a fantastic range as well. I own some of their Orc Juggernauts, which make much better Orc knobs in Mega Armor than Games Workshop's own offering, so check them out. Great sculpts, reasonable prices. Another recommendation from me, head over to www.cromlech.eu to check out their range. Anyway, I digress. This pot contains 30 millilitres of powder. I thought millilitres was liquid. Anyway, and as I always say when it comes to weathering powders, as yet I still have no first-hand experience using them, despite having got them in the past in discovery boxes. Referring to the product guide, Andy provides the instructions required to get the most from the product. Examples clearly illustrates the results that can be attained. So, I look forward to one day building up the confidence and having a go myself. Next up, we have another of the empty dropper bottles. I've already spoken about these earlier in this video, but can never have too many of them, and they're a quality solution to the problem of rubbish paint pots, and I apologise for the motorcycle in the background. Finally, at this month's Heron's box, there is a triad of paints from Coat d'Arms. We have Pounds of Grey, Field Blue and Ink Wash Black. All colours chosen, I assume, for the Vindicare Assassin Body Glove. Each of these pots contains 18 millilitres of paint, and I know they don't contain agitators, but no matter, they can be transferred to my dropper bottles that I got this month. So that won't be a problem. For those old school Games Workshop collectors who may be looking at these pots thinking they recognise the design, you probably do. Coat the Arms were the original supplier for paint back in the day. Since then, Games Workshop have changed supplier 3, perhaps 4 times. Each time there's a different container design or paint name change or something, chances are it's because there's a new supplier. I've used Coat the Arms paints a number of times since returning to the hobby, and I've always found them to be excellent quality, providing good coverage whilst maintaining a highly workable density to the paint. Of course, thinning is still always recommended. I will be interested in comparing this black wash to Nuln Oil, which I generally consider to be the best of them on the market. I've used Valhaleo, which was absolutely god awful, and the Army Painter dark tone tends to apply quite thickly and dries quite thickly. So I'll let you know if Coat the Arms is a contender for the crown of Nuln Oil. The other two colours appear to be drawn from a modern military range, I would deduce, based on their naming conventions. Let's look at the product guide. Andy has gone into how to apply the paints, not in as much detail on the model, but certainly on the base here. I suppose due to cost restraints, you will of course be needing more than the 2 paints and a wash provided, but for a model of this detail. But using these as a base, you could get a good start, and I don't think you could really expect them to include all of the paints in one box, or at least not for the price point of this subscription at least. Now, after a highly professional cut and reorganisation of my set, this box is a harder one to check the price of, as the model, which is the kind of core of it, is only available from a single source, being a manufacturer, where its RRP is £20. The quality of the model is easily on par with Forge World, so I think that's probably a fair price for the kind of small production run, high quality model market. In fact, it's probably better, as this model comes with a scenic base, something I'm sure Forge World will throw in for at least another tenner. The Coat the Arms paints have a combined RRP of £6.90, the Cromlech pigment £2.85. We know from the Discovery box the RRP on the dropper bottle is £1, which would give us a total combined cost of £30.75. If you were to assume that you could source the paints online with like a 10% discount, that would bring it down to like £29.70 something, I think. 77, I think. On top of which you would have the shipping costs for the model from the Ukraine, which I believe is where Grimskull are located. And really, for the £21.90 plus P&P cost of the subscription, I really think you're making quite a considerable saving. So, in conclusion, I'm thrilled with my Heroines box. I struck it lucky getting a sci-fi setting miniature, so and doubly so from the company who I know makes such fantastic models. I would quite happily swap out all of the models in my army for Grimskull's alternate skulls. The paints included would help me get started with... Well, I'll start that again, shall I? The paints help me to get started and would be really useful to differentiate this model from my existing Vindicare Assassin. As for the Discovery box, a really interesting selection this month, all of which I'm brimming with ideas how to use. To ensure Asset Drop are on top form with both ranges, and I look forward to seeing what next month has in store for me, albeit back to just the Discovery box in April. So that's me done for now. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me ramble on. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I welcome your constructive feedback and discussion in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it. If you like my content, feel free to subscribe. Both help me in knowing what's working. In the meantime, I've been Steve. This has been the SDFnet 40K channel, and I will see you next time.